Evio. The Mask of Gloom, one of Robert Frost's lesser-known little curses, goes like this. Those dark trees, the merest mask of gloom that stretched away under the edge of doom. He was writing about New England woods in the abstract, of course, about youth and the terror of the future. Not about anything that crawled out of the stone walls west of Boston. But if you were driving down Farm Street in Dover, Massachusetts, on the night of April 21st, 1977, those few lines would have felt less like poetry and more like a warning label. Because what Bill Bartlett saw at the edge of his headlights that night, it didn't feel like a metaphor. It felt like something that had stepped out of a darkness older than electricity. Something that had been there long before Dover had a name. Long before colonial stone walls carved up the woods like scars. It felt like something patient, something watching, something that didn't intend to be seen. Welcome back to The Devil Within. Tonight, we're not in a haunted house or in a crime scene. There isn't a seance table or a ritual circle or a blood-stained crucifix waiting for us. Instead, we're in a quiet, well-manicured New England town, 15 miles southwest of Boston, where centuries-old money settles into antique barns, and the biggest scandal most years is the local lacrosse team losing to Wellesley. Dover's the kind of place that doesn't appreciate surprises. It especially doesn't appreciate anything unscheduled crawling out of the woods. But geography cares very little about town preferences. Because Dover, once you strip away all the colonial charm and the freshly painted shutters, Dover's a place defined by its terrain. The knotted forests, the low stone fences, the old glacial cuts and swamp hollows that make up its true structure, its true skeleton. You can cover that in asphalt and mortgage brokers all you'd like, but the wildness is still there. And on certain nights, if you are unlucky enough to be on the wrong road at the wrong time, it's going to remind you. April 1977 had that particular early spring restlessness. Warm days, cold nights, puddles on the roads that hadn't evaporated yet from the winter thaw. The kind of weather that makes teenagers restless. When you're young and school feels like a cage and the only escape is getting in a car and driving through the dark while the radio hisses static between the AM stations. Now that's exactly what three 17-year-olds were doing around 10:30 that Thursday night. Bill Bartlett was behind the wheel of his dad's car, staying mostly under the speed limit. His friends Mike Mazzocca and Andy Brody flanked him as a teenage Greek chorus, talking about bands and teachers, girls, or maybe nothing at all. If you remember being a teenager, you know, conversations drifted. The world moved slower, stranger, and not always in the ways that you wanted. Farm Street, where the boys were driving, it runs along the northern edge of town. During the day, it's very scenic. Tall pines, those stone walls, farmhouse lawns that slope down toward the road. But at night, all those same features rearrange themselves into something that seems more ominous. The trees crowd in closer. Those old stone walls look like ribs of something buried. And the headlights, those small domestic beams, they have a way of illuminating just enough of the darkness to let your imagination create the rest. But Bill knew this road. Everyone in Dover knew this road. It was the long way home. It was the scenic route. The stretch where you could drive without worrying about passing headlamps or noisy neighbors. And then, in the span of a breath, the entire night tightened around him. He hadn't seen it fully yet, hadn't turned his head. But the moment that he caught movement, pale, off-center, perched, something old in his instincts stirred. Not fear exactly, not yet, but a feeling like the night had just inhaled, and he was about to understand why. What he saw will belong to the next chapter, but for now, imagine a boy in a car on a warmish April night, driving past stone walls that have been there since before America existed, with Frost's Mask of Gloom pressed against the windows, and something waiting ahead on the road he has always trusted. This is Chapter 2, Zero at the Bone. Most cryptid sightings begin with polite phrases. A figure, a shape, a thing. Bill Bartlett's didn't. The moment he turned his head toward the movement on the stone wall, the world contracted. For a heartbeat or two, the universe contained only three things: the beam of his headlights, the pale form perched on the stones, and the sudden, icy pressure climbing up his spine. The creature, and creature honestly is the only word here, the creature was positioned like it had been caught mid-climb. 4 feet tall, maybe slightly less. The limbs were long and thin, almost twig-like, as if assembled from the wrong blueprint. The skin was hairless and pale, the color of wet clay or peach flesh. It had the texture of something unfinished, a biological draft rendered by a hand that got bored halfway through. And the head, massive, smooth, bulbous, the head of something evolved for darkness, not for daylight. Bartlett would later describe it as watermelon-shaped, not because he meant to be funny, but because it was the closest available analogy in a 17-year-old's vocabulary. And there was no nose, no visible mouth, just two large reflective orbs, orange in the headlights, staring back with the animal stillness of something desperately trying not to move. Its fingers, long and spidery, curled over the stones like pale roots searching for soil. Now that would be enough to unnerve most grown adults. Again, Bartlett was 17. He caught his breath, his stomach dropped. The great American poet Emily Dickinson once described the feeling perfectly: without a tighter breathing and zero at the bone. Now, Dickinson was writing about a snake, in that ancient jolt of evolutionary terror when your body recognizes danger before your mind catches up. Bartlett felt that, and more. The hair on his arms rose, his fingertips tingled. Fight or flight, that fired all at once, and his body chose the third, least heroic option. Keep driving, pray it's behind you, pretend the world hasn't just broken in 3 seconds. His friends hadn't seen anything. Mike and Andy were mid-conversation. They were arguing about something trivial, probably the Red Sox. But by the time Bill's brain had relearned how to process sound, the moment had passed. He didn't hit the brakes, he didn't gasp, he didn't shout. He just pressed on the accelerator fractionally harder than before. Now that's the first cruelty of this story. 3 boys in a car, but only one pair of eyes sees the impossible. Later that night, when he dropped the others off and he drove home alone, the rationalizations began. A dog, a baby deer, a trick of the headlights maybe. But rationalizations don't dissolve if the memory is too specific, if it's too physical, if it's too detailed. Bartlett remembered the exact curve of the creature's spine, the slight tilt of its head, the way its fingers gripped the stone as if preparing to shift its weight. You don't imagine those details. You observe those details. When he got home, his father noticed immediately that something was wrong. Bill looked pale and shaken. Not teenage shaken, existentially shaken. So he told him, quietly, carefully. And then he sat down, took out a pencil and paper, and he drew it. And that sketch remains one of the most famous cryptid images in American folklore. The creature perched, long-limbed and fetal, head grotesquely large, eyes blank and glowing. At the bottom, Bill added a line that would define the rest of his life. I, Bill Bartlett, swear on a stack of Bibles that I saw this creature. He never recanted, he never embellished, he never franchised his trauma into a brand. Instead, he avoided interviews, he ducked reporters, and let the incident sit like a bruise he preferred not to touch. And that's the second cruelty. People who lie enjoy the attention. People who tell the truth usually wish they'd seen nothing. And here's the third cruelty, the one Bartlett couldn't have known at the time. His sighting wasn't the only one that night, and the creature wasn't done walking. 3 more encounters were waiting along a 2-mile line through Dover, a straight, deliberate path as if something was tracing the old colonial boundaries drawn before any of the houses existed. But that belongs to the next chapter. For now, picture a 17-year-old alone in his bedroom. The dark trees of Robert Frost outside his window, Emily Dickinson's chill still lingering in his bones, and in the lamp glow before him, the pencil outline of a creature that had no right to exist, perched on a wall like it had been waiting for someone to finally look up. Chapter 3. The Line Through the Woods. If Bill Bartlett's sighting had been the only one, Dover would have eventually folded it into the category of awkward teenage memories. The kind that surface once a decade at reunions, laughed off with a shrug and a beer. But stories like this, they never behave themselves. Eventually, they metastasize. They find new witnesses. They take roots in the quiet parts of a town's geography. And in Dover, Massachusetts, whatever Bill saw didn't just vanish back into the dark. It moved. Roughly an hour and a half after Bartlett's encounter, after he'd drawn his sketch, after his father had asked twice whether he wanted to call the police, after the night had pretended to settle, 15-year-old John Baxter was walking home along Miller Hill Road, just south of where Farm Street bends out into the woods. This part of Dover is all silhouettes. Steep dips in the road, tree trunks like black pillars, marshland that gleams when the moon hits it right. If you've ever walked a New England road at night, you know the soundscape as well. Your own footsteps, maybe a distant dog, wind threading through branches like fingers through hair. Baxter had done this walk 100 times. He lived nearby. He knew every bend. He didn't know the figure coming toward him. From a distance, it looked like another person, a small one, maybe a kid from school taking the same shortcut home. Baxter wasn't afraid. He wasn't even paying that much attention. He just continued on until he noticed 2 things at once. The figure wasn't shaped quite right, and it wasn't walking correctly. Its gait was strange, loping almost, a rhythm that didn't belong to a human or an animal. Baxter later described it with the blunt panic of someone who doesn't want to embellish. It wasn't walking like a person. It wasn't walking like anything I'd seen. As he drew closer, the shape became clearer, and whatever nonchalance Baxter had began to evaporate. The figure was thin, too thin. Its head was oversized and bulbous, leaning forward as if weighted by something unseen. Its arms hung low, unnaturally long, and he couldn't see a face. The night was playing its usual tricks, but the silhouette alone was enough to make him stop walking. He called out. No answer. The figure paused too, and then it stepped off the road and into the shallow gully beside it, moving with a fluid, boneless sort of grace, like something accustomed to crouching rather than standing. Baxter followed it with his gaze, peering into the darkness, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Moonlight slid across the ravine, and in that silver smear of illumination, he realized the thing was perched on a rock, staring at him. Except staring might not even be the right word. It was just facing him. The oversized head angled just enough to register awareness, the limbs arranged in a way that looked surprisingly deliberate, as if it were calculating its next move. Young John Baxter froze. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a kid. This wasn't something he could slot neatly into his world. His rational mind tried to conjure explanations. A deformed animal, a lost primate, something escaped from a lab. The creature didn't breathe loudly. It didn't shift its weight with the awkwardness of an animal surprised in the dark. It just sat there, watching, patient as stone. And then Baxter did the one thing that separates stories of near misses from stories that end in eulogies. He backed away slowly. Not running, not screaming, just a steady, terrified retreat until he felt he was far enough to turn and walk, briskly and purposefully, back home. Hours later, when he heard about Bartlett's sketch, he nearly lost his freaking mind. The two boys didn't know each other. They hadn't compared notes. They hadn't texted. This was 1977. No one texted anything. And yet Baxter's description matched Bartlett's in every grotesque detail. The size, the limbs, the head, the posture. Same creature, different road, 90 minutes apart. And here's the detail that ties it all together. The one investigators still return to when they want to feel that strange drop in their stomach. The locations of Bartlett's and Baxter's encounters plot almost perfectly along a north to south line through the heart of Dover, a narrow 2-mile corridor bordered by woods, wetlands, and colonial stone walls. A path, a direction, a route that something might take if it were moving from one place to another, unhurried, unconcerned with being seen, navigating a town as though it already knew the terrain. Word travels strangely in small towns. The sightings weren't immediately connected. Bartlett told his father, Baxter told a classmate. Neither of them wanted attention. Neither had a reputation as a liar or a troublemaker. Neither had any interest in cryptids or monsters or even the paranormal. They were just kids whose nights had been disrupted by something that shouldn't exist. And here's the part that seals it, the part that turns two eerie encounters into a pattern. Before the sun rose the following morning, there would be a third sighting. A girl named Abby Brabham, who would spot the creature perched near a bridge rail, its eyes glowing green, its body hunched like a hairless gargoyle, deciding whether to leap or to flee. But Abby's story and her boyfriend's refusal to believe her, that belongs to chapter 4. For now, the important thing is this. The Dover demon wasn't a flash in the pan hallucination. It walked, it moved, it followed a line, not a human path, not an animal trail, something even older, something instinctive, something that seemed to know exactly where it was going. And if you stand on Farm Street, Miller Hill Road, or Springdale Avenue today, if you line up your feet with the angle that connects those old stone walls, you might feel it too. That pull, that corridor, that narrow funnel of geography where the night feels a shade heavier and the trees lean inward like they remember something that you don't. Bill Bartlett saw the beginning of something. John Baxter saw the middle. And what came next would give Dover a story it still refuses to tell. So if these first 3 sightings, or 2.5 because we haven't gotten to Abby's story yet, if those sightings of the Dover demon teach us anything, it's this. Some stories don't arrive fully formed. They creep, they accumulate, they take shape the same way shadows stretch across a room, slow, deliberate, almost polite, until the darkness is no longer background, but subject. 3 kids in a town that never asked for mythology. 3 sightings forming a perfect, impossible line. 3 encounters with something that walked like a message, but spoke like a silence. And yet, the creature didn't attack, it didn't chase, it didn't stalk. It just watched with those bulbous, luminous eyes, as if the teenagers of Dover were curiosities, not prey. We can return to Emily Dickinson, who wrote, "A chill pervades the grass, and such a chill I never felt before." And tonight, that chill isn't just metaphor. It's the thin, needling sense that something moved through those neighborhoods and farm roads and stone walls with an intelligence that we still can't name. And now that we've traced the demon's path south to the point where the road narrows and the woods cinch in close, What comes next will take us deeper into the part of the story that Dover tried the hardest to bury. In part 2 of The Devil Within, The Dover Demon, on Friday, we follow the thread into the shadows. The investigators who mapped the sightings, the ancient Wampanoag warnings about the liminal forest spirits, the theories that tore the town in half, and the unsettling realization that something older than Dover was walking its old paths through the trees. We'll lift the floorboards beneath the folklore, the native legends, the colonial stone walls, the interdimensional theories, the demonology panic, and ask the question the town never wanted to hear answered. What if the Dover demon wasn't lost? What if it knew exactly where it was going? Part 2 drops Friday, and trust me, the scariest part is still ahead. If you're enjoying The Devil Within, don't forget to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Rate and review. It keeps the show alive, helps other people discover it, and keeps it climbing. Share this episode with someone who loves the strange, the supernatural, or the unexplained. And follow us on Instagram at The Devil Within Pod, or email us at info@eviocreative.com. Share your theories, your local legends, or even your personal encounters. And check out the entire Evio Creative universe, The Ides of April, Criminal Mischief, Taboo Treasures, and more. And check the show notes for great deals from the great companies that still support long-form storytelling. Mood, legal THC and CBD gummies shipped nationwide. Go to mood.com/devilwithin for 20% off your first order. Quince, luxury basics without the luxury markup. Free shipping and 365-day returns with our link in the show notes. Mint Mobile, premier wireless for $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/devilwithin. And ExpressVPN, protect your data anywhere. ExpressVPN.com for up to 4 months free. The Devil Within is an Evio production, recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. For The Devil Within, I'm your writer and host, Brandon Morgan. The Devil Within is an Evio production, recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. For The Devil Within, I'm your writer and host, Brandon Morgan.